Three, two, one, and we're on. Welcome to episode number 2 of the Crowley channel. And I have on today from a very frequent contributor to Alpha News, who I would recommend reading and bookmarking his work daily, and that is like, do I call you AJ or do I call you Ari Kaufman?
You can call me Ari for this one, but I do go by AJ when it comes to the articles I write for your website and for Alpha News.
I like the Ari never wrong. No, I mean, now you get on with Morgendale and that, and then it's I could be wrong, but then you tell me you're never wrong.
Well, those are Well, it's sometimes predictions you have to say I could be wrong, but in reality, when it comes to some of my predictions unfortunately, sometimes for politics and in Georgia and elections and sports, it's more often than not that Ari is never wrong or not wrong.
And speaking of, and I just want to preface everything, like, you have taught me so much about the political landscape, and I mean, you've forgotten more than I know, but you went out and made the trek yourself to Georgia last week, and there was a video piece on Alpha, and you did several pieces, and you knew how critical this was. And then we had, of course, as pretty much what one of your favorite sites, 538.com, predicted that it would be very close and probably in the favor of John Ossoff. Tell me if I'm not pronouncing his name right, and Raphael Warnock.
Yeah, I say Ossoff. He's Jewish, allegedly. Not that that matters, but I say Ossoff. Certainly Warnock is correct, and it's Leffler, I believe, for Kelly.
Leffler.
And of course,
Purdue. And the WNBA celebrated her loss. Well, the NBA too. So you had this double whammy of these results that went late in the night, and the Ossoff win did not become official till morning, and then we had the certification of the Electoral College. And since President Trump had used up every trick in his book and spent I don't know how much money trying to overturn results in Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia, and those 3 states were decided, and you likely know, by about 40,000 votes combined. You flip those states back and it's 269. So, either voting, Stacey Abrams has been accused of voting irregularities. And that was one story last night. College football offensive line coach for FCS University, Chattanooga. He got caught on Facebook. He called Stacey Abrams Fat Albert and enjoy the buffet, and he got fired from his football gig about 15 minutes later. And he previously worked at a historically black school, so
he got fired. I didn't hear that, and it's not worth debating whether someone should get fired.
It's on KCmedia.com. You put something on Twitter for 5 minutes, and the cesspool, the Twitter cesspool, they are all waiting to celebrate Rush Limbaugh, who turned 70 next Tuesday.
Right.
And he obviously said some strong things on this radio show yesterday.
Let me touch on 2 things you mentioned.
Go ahead.
Number one, the Stacey Abrams, I didn't know about the Stacey Abrams thing with the coach. I don't know that we need to fire, suspend, or attack people for saying political things or inappropriate condemnations of people, because if that were the case, then Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich would have long ago lost their jobs, and they haven't. And they've been not only critical of horrible things they've said about this president, but about Republicans, probably about George W. Bush and others. So I know an assistant coach at UT Chattanooga may be different than an NBA coach, but I'd like to see some consistency there. I probably wouldn't have anyone fire or force anyone to resign, but kind of like you always say with the word vote, when it's always sitting in the end zone of a
Right.
NFL game or a basketball arena, just put down vote Biden or vote Ossoff or
Yes.
vote Warnock. It's disingenuous to act
Oh,
like
it's a
you're not
stress.
partisan.
You know what? First off, I don't think you're going to see fans allowed in um, sporting venues for quite a while. And I could be talking possibly years. And hopefully I'm wrong. But you have the false flag of COVID. Well, it's not I mean, COVID's real.
Right.
COVID is very, and no one's paying attention, but the results are as high as ever in the United States. It's 4,100 deaths 2 days in a row, 270,000 cases. I remember when Dr. Fauci said, "Oh, we might get to 100,000." I go, "Oh no, my God, not 100,000! It's 270,000." Unfortunately, COVID, I think it's fair to say, exceeded expectations.
Yeah, and as far as sports goes, outdoor events are going to be different than indoor. I believe we've seen crowds of 20% capacity at NFL games and World Series games. But when it comes to the indoor events, the NHL, NBA, college basketball, college hockey, with the exception of Creighton has had fans of 10%, Butler,
Right.
but with a few exceptions, you're not going to see fans. I don't think they're too concerned. It's worth debating whether or not they're right or wrong. But no, I wouldn't put 100% capacity crowd into a 10,000 seat arena. I wouldn't do that. But for some of these places to not allow a single fan or to move them out of the county because Santa Clara is, afraid of what's going on up there.
Well, I mean, I click on Stanford's basketball game and I'm seeing Golden State Warriors, logos on the floor. And it turns out they were playing in Santa Cruz, which is where the Warriors minor league, what they call the G League, what they used to call the D League. G League's for, advertising.
It's California. I mean, the Rose Bowl was empty all year. They lost their chance to host a national semifinal game.
Right.
I would just say this about California: everything they've done has been a failure. So, frankly, I don't think any more people are going to get sick or die if they open up their venues. I mean, and you and I have discussed this. You look at California versus Florida. These are as similar states as you're going to get. They're coastal states. They have very similar demographics in terms of race. Florida's a slightly older state, and California has more people, but not that many more, maybe 10, 12 million more. Florida has not really closed anything completely, not their beaches, not their restaurants. They have limits, but they're still doing as poorly, as well, or better than California. So all the pain that the governor and the terrible leaders of California and their cities have caused to people has not been worth it, in the sense it hasn't saved, as far as we can tell, we're not doctors, but it hasn't saved anyone's lives any more than other states that have done very little that have similar populations, because you always have to compare similar populations. And unfortunately, California has just decided to think that they know better than their citizens. And being a very liberal state, the majority of their citizens, though thankfully not all, but the majority of them love when the government tells them what to do. A lot of them are very rich and some of them are very poor. But for working class, middle class people, they've been crushed by what California's done. And it just continues to be the worst run state in America. And it's unfortunately a one party state. And, I don't want to get too ideological, but you see where I'm going with that.
Oh, get ideological. You're the expert. I have someone I went to high school with named Mark Pajari. He's done very well in the photography business and other endeavors. And he and his wife moved to kind of inland empires, California, near San Bernardino, somewhere.
Near where I went to college.
Temecula.
Okay. Yeah.
And this time of year, he will be showing pictures of his front porch or a screenshot at the temperature is 75 degrees and sunny.
Yeah.
While usually why a blizzard's blowing around these parts, and I'm going, you know what? I'll gladly take the blizzards. It's a lot better than the fecal storm that has.
The fecal storms aren't good. I don't want to. Yeah, it's.
You know what? As Senator Sass says, here in Nebraska, be a neighbor and shovel out your driveway.
Yeah, you got criticized for that.
I don't know if I want to shovel fecal matter. So I don't want to hear guy in Nova Scotia.
He's the weather guy.
Yeah, who does he does this little weather thing? The meteorologists hate him because he's basically telling them everyone the same stuff that they tell him. And he talks about politics gets debated with every cold front, but I could see this guy getting on his Nova Scotia channel and going, major fecal storm headed for the entire state of California.
With the homeless situation there, and the beaches are not very.
Yes.
You go to beaches on the East Coast. I didn't know this growing up. West Coast is beautiful. Don't get me wrong. You've lived there. I've lived there.
Right.
Beautiful drives, but the actual beaches, for the most part, and the water compared to when you go to the East Coast beaches or even the Gulf, it's amazing how much dirtier the water is in California, and the sand and everything else. Not to mention the beaches that you can access are more crowded. And I'm not a beach guy, but I always find it interesting that despite all their environmentalism and all their good earth, clean stuff, and that's all well-meaning, they still have the dirtiest, filthiest, and most income inequality and the worst lives for minorities. And it's just amazing, everything they've done.
The environmentalists have, if you've been at La Jolla Cove lately.
Not lately. I grew up near there, but I haven't lately.
I mean, well, what they call the La Jolla Children's Pool.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
The sea lions took over, and they nap out on the rocks until the marine layer wears off.
The marine layer, yes. We know the marine
along
layer.
With me and Ryan Phillips and a few other people we know.
Good old Ryan Phillips. Yeah.
We might as well call out the people. Right?
Is he living in Bloomington or Milwaukee or San Diego now?
He's been in San Diego for several years now. I never touched base with him.
He's got a villa and a trust fund, so he'll be good there for a while. He can.
Yeah.
Hi, Ryan. I
need a cough button. I haven't been coughing until today, but
you mentioned Rush Limbaugh. We could transition to that. I didn't hear the show live, but we know people who listen to Rush Limbaugh, and I listen occasionally, and I did catch the audio. I didn't know he was turning 70. Obviously, he's been sick for about a year, and we all wish him well. 70 is still very young.
Right.
And I'm glad he's still doing his job when he can. I know he's had guest hosts a lot. There have been a lot of things I've disagreed with him on during the Trump era. I think that he's a brilliant man who's done great things for conservatism, and I'm not saying he should retire, but I was a little disappointed in what I heard yesterday. He really went out of his way not to condemn anything that happened, and to give the kind of cliche, this is what happens when people are fed up. It's what happens when, they don't feel listened to. And look, I get that, but at some point you don't storm the Capitol. Limbaugh and a lot of people on talk radio and Fox News have been telling people for months that the election was stolen. And I know you're a little more into that than I am, that it was stolen, but 48 or 60, all the illegal cases were thrown out. And I think they gave a lot of people some false hope about what was going on. And then when I knew Joe Biden was going to be president January 20th, and I think even if you're disappointed about it, you probably knew that. But these people, you interview them, and I talk to them in Georgia, and you see them on TV too, they believe that Donald Trump was going to be president, and the Republicans or Mike Pence or Mitch McConnell was going to go in there and somehow, which is impossible, overturn the election. And when it didn't happen, they went crazy. And I don't think we need to excuse that, even if Antifa were possibly involved.
Well, I heard something that there were Black Lives Matter supporters that joined in on the fun on Wednesday.
I'm sure I'm sure, and when BLM and Antifa did their mayhem through the summer, they said there were white supremacists that joined in, Proud Boys. Maybe there were a few, of course, but I don't know. Some of these folks, they can trace them back and see who they are and what they've said on Facebook and Twitter. And, most of them were, Trump guys, and that's fine as long as you don't, break into Nancy Pelosi's office and hang from the ceiling in the Senate and
Well,
things of
someone
that
was
nature.
sitting in like the main chair.
Yeah, sitting in the chair and taking photos. And this was,
Yeah, because on Wednesday night, and I figured something was going to go down.
yeah,
So I was doing other things. And, I was actually away from the computer for a few hours, and I come back to find out that you know that all hell broke loose. And you know what? I don't want to say I was shocked or even surprised that it got to that level, but concerning that there's like four perimeters that they have to break in.
yeah, it's concerning.
That's another reason I don't think we're going to have fans at sports events. You
Yeah,
know, let's storm U.S. Bank Stadium during a Vikings game. Um, Proud Boys or Trump forever or whatever. And you feel pretty secure at a sports or entertainment venue.
yeah,
When 9/11 happened, I go, God,
I would say
if
this
they
about
could
the
do it, if they could do that to the World Trade Center, they could do it to Yankee Stadium or name your. I don't want to name any major
Mhm.
college football, NFL, whatever venue.
It's concerning because that theoretically ISIS and Chinese people and the leaders of China, the communists could be watching this and seeing how easy it is, and that's problematic. But what I would say is two things on that. One, Trump supporters have not been violent for 4 years. It's just the truth. Much like the Tea Party, most, if not all, Trump rallies have been feisty and they yell, but and
Right.
they occasionally turn to the media and yell at them, but there haven't been riots like there were at summer events. Now you can discuss what kind of event this was compared to what kind of event they had this summer. But what I didn't like, and I'm going to now turn it and criticize the left, was having people on CNN and NBC and in the New York Times, and I'm sure you see it on social media more than I do, saying, well, if they were black people that were rioting, the police would have been there shooting them down. And Joe Biden fell for this yesterday in his speech. And I'm trying to give Biden the benefit of the doubt, but he says that his 16-year-old granddaughter texted him yesterday and said, why are there no police there? If black people were there, they would have been shot down. This is 16-year-old rich white granddaughter. This idea that the police are racist, of course, is crap. The police are majority minority, especially in the DC area. And this idea that they were so tough on Black Lives Matter and Antifa. I mean, they got a street named after them. People put their black squares on Instagram to virtue signal. No one was killed by police this summer, but none of the BLM or Antifa people. They were praised undyingly by the media and by mayors. Again, they weren't being gunned down. They were being cheered on. And more importantly, just save your self-absorbed, smug self-righteousness to say, when you're a rich white guy, to say that black people would have been shot down. There were black people in the Trump group yesterday. And, they called it a peaceful protest this summer. And then yesterday it was a riot. Okay, they were both riots to me in many ways.
Mostly peaceful protests, and we got Minneapolis burning in the background.
That's the famous clip. Yeah, and don't forget, there were Democrat congressmen out there saying, get in people's faces at restaurants, chase them down. So they've instigated some things too. I don't think Trump said, go charge the Capitol and chase people down. He may have said some things that got people riled up, but I've heard congressmen from the Democrat side and senators say, get in their faces, fight. We saw it since day one, the Trump administration, celebrities, whatever it might be, athletes. I mean, there are arguments to make that LeBron James started most of these riots with his Twitter account.
And like I called it a double whammy, or it's actually a triple whammy. The Georgia runoffs,
Yeah.
then the decision in Kenosha not to prosecute any
Right.
officers involved in the Jacob Blake shooting, and the tabulation from the Electoral College. So you had these three events converging on each other, and a pent up nation, a pent up world over the last almost a year now. And
Well, and let me
yeah,
ask you this, Kurt.
sadly,
I don't.
and that
I've been
surprised
of,
me.
I've been of the belief for many months that I think the George Floyd situation was bad. I think we all agree. We can discuss whether George Floyd's a hero or not. It's a different story. He had a criminal past and all that. But I don't believe these protests would be like they were. I don't riots, protests this summer had we not been locked up for 3 months prior. I mean, I don't know. You can protest all you want, but the size of them and the scope and the global nature and the fact that again, most people protesting, in my opinion, were rich, upper middle class, young white folks who had been at home for 3 months because of COVID and they needed to burst out and show their opinion and their virtue signal, whatever. I don't believe the George Floyd protests, riots, whatever it might be, would have been 1% as strong had people not been locked up by COVID. They were looking for something to do.
And yeah, I mean, for the record, full disclosure, you're in Minnesota.
I'm in Minnesota. Right. I am. Now
And
they
you can prove it without, you can bring out your Ari cam and show the.
the snow and the icicles. Yeah, I'm trying to cover that up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And weather. You just nailed it. And the fact that it happened Memorial Day weekend when the weather finally gets warm here.
Right.
Frankly, if this happens in February or November, you're not going to have that many people out in the streets.
Right. And we know it's been unseasonably warm, throughout at least our part of most of the nation. Actually, I think even out east hasn't had it bad, or even Canada. The polar vortex is over the North Pole.
Yeah, I mean we've been in the 20s. I mean that's pretty average. We've been pretty much in the 20s for a couple of weeks, and so I don't. It hasn't been warm, but it hasn't been colder than it hasn't been zero as much. Sure.
And I guess it is projected to finally spill down in the next couple weeks. So,
well, it's mid-January. That's
yeah, we
that's normal.
where I am, Lincoln, Nebraska, we get a number of below zero mornings by this point, and we had one. And I thought, it got down to 5 degrees, and I thought, well, that's, at least it was below zero. Wound up -2. So that
Yeah.
I did not know that, but we have one day below zero so far. I'm sure St. Cloud's up to 9 or 10 already.
Yeah, I mean the cloud cover keeps it from getting too far below zero. But we had that we had them in November. We had some really cold days that were unseasonable.
You look at the. I mean, you're obsessed looking at the St. Cloud weather, the St. Cloud University recap, and
St. Cloud State.
yeah, and I read, yeah, St. Cloud rocks.
Yeah, look at us. All I need is my Padre hat.
Hey, it was great that I got to see sample the rocks a couple times.
Right.
The Wilmer Ball Club, and the Wausau Summer League team, and the Milwaukee Milkmen, and
Yeah, and they'll be going next summer. I mean, if the yuppie St. Paul Saints can open up their stadium to 20% this summer. I mean, the smaller baseball venues, Northwoods League, Independent League. Gosh, I hope minor league baseball, but you never know with them because they're kind of controlled by the MLB.
Well, yeah, Major League Baseball's trying to control the summer leagues now.
I don't know how they can do that. These guys are college athletes.
Yeah, Manfred, Commissioner Manfred is trying to. Long for the days where everyone in the media hated Bud Selig. But it's like Bud Selig was the worst man in the history of the world.
And I never saw that. I look at Bud Selig's tenure as being 1,000 times better than Manfred's. I think I look at Manfred as sort of like a California politician. I think just about everything he's done for baseball has made it worse. And I don't see him going anywhere soon, but this year was different. I'm not going to criticize him for anything with COVID and how they set it up. I think they got through it pretty well, all things considered. I didn't mind the playoff format. I do think that the Dodgers winning the World Series, sorry, LA friends, has a small asterisk. You don't get the same credit when you don't play a road game the entire playoffs. Now, maybe they would have won, but when you're playing your entire playoffs in Dallas, or I guess they had one series in LA against Milwaukee, and
Right.
you've got, of course, fans on your side, but you didn't have to travel to Atlanta. You didn't have to travel to
Oh yeah, they were in
Tampa
Arlington
Bay.
for 3 weeks.
The Dodgers were the best team in baseball all year, as they were in the past when they didn't win it, and they won the World Series as it was constructed. But, and I know I have Dodger fan friends who maybe will watch this, it's not the same World Series as 2019, 18, 17, whatever. It's not. There should be a small asterisk, and that goes for the Lakers too. And I say that again,
that psyop bubble.
yes, the Lakers did not win the NBA title last year. And if John Washburn and that crowd is watching, I'm not doing this because I hate LeBron James, and I do hate LeBron James, but that's a different discussion.
I need to get, if John Washburn is listening, I want him on my
Okay,
show.
I'll send it to him when we're done.
I'm going to have a number of people, and like I will put on. I've got a lot of friends that are liberal. If Charlie Shonit's listening to this, a good friend of mine. Yeah, I'd like to see you and Charlie slug it out. Yeah, he's beyond liberal. He's so.
Well, just to finish on the Lakers.
But yeah, so, I'm going to have an assortment of guests. But go ahead on the Lakers.
No, I'm just going to say the Lakers, again, like the Dodgers. I don't follow the NBA that much, but it's pretty clear they were the best team in the NBA all year, and maybe they would have won the title had it been played the regular way with the 2 month of playoffs with the travel and all that. The NBA is different. You get a couple stars. Look at what happened. The Lakers before Anthony Davis came, I could be wrong, but in the 2018-19 season with the great LeBron, they did crap. So LeBron,
I think LeBron was hurt much of that year.
Okay, fine. I'm not blaming LeBron.
And they're tanking.
Right.
Teams are supposed to lose.
Another reason the NBA, frankly, has a problem: load management and tanking and all that. But you add Anthony Davis, who's one of the 5 best players in the NBA. In the few parts that I watched the playoffs, he's hitting game-winning shots. He's dominating. I know LeBron got the MVP. But anyway, you have the 2 or 3 best players, you win. We saw that.
LeBron's the greatest NBA player of all time.
Right.
And a social justice champion.
Yeah, he's the great. He should run for president. He'll probably win.
Yeah, he just. Crazier things have happened. Donald Trump winning.
Yeah, but LeBron James is a little bit. Well, I don't want to get into it. He's not the smartest. Listen to Jason Whitlock. He's a black guy. Maybe he can say it and I can't. But he says LeBron James.
If we potentially have a president who never went beyond high school,
I don't even care about that because heck. But LeBron James is illiterate. I mean, he can't write. He can't speak. He doesn't know anything. But okay, I don't want to get into that.
Okay.
The Lakers
and I was sampling a few of the opinions in the NBA, and I was reading Wesley Matthews, who played for Marquette. He's a Wisconsinite, lifelong. His dad played for University of Wisconsin.
I remember him.
And he's played for the Bucks, so he's with the Lakers now. So I read him, I heard him out on his comments on what's going on. But like you said, all the NBA coaches are, and we know about Kerr, we know about Popovich.
Yeah, they're not just liberal.
Doc Rivers is another. I hate to say that. I remember when Doc Rivers was.
I like to see one of them actually say something different. Even Brad Stevens, who I think
you sent me that today.
Brad Stevens, I know Brad Stevens. I met him when I was in Indianapolis. I sat by his wife at a game. He's a I don't know about conservative. He's a Christian guy from suburban Indianapolis. He's a white bread Indiana guy. I don't know how he votes, but he feels the pressure from these tyrants that run the league and play for him to come out and say, right. Now, I don't disagree that things were bad on Wednesday, but to say we can't wait for a new president and blah, 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 he's falling for the Kool-Aid, whatever you want to say. It's just unfortunate. There's no time for, for people to actually have a different opinion in the NBA. And if they do, we don't hear from them. Gordon Hayward may think differently, than a lot of these guys, but he's not going to say anything.
Well, he had Black Lives Matter on the back of his name.
Yeah, well, most of these guys don't know what Black Lives Matter, the organization, does.
Dante DiEnzo, and who got in trouble for saying something on Twitter while he was in high school or something. We went through this.
Don't know much. That's why they're athletes and entertainers. And on the Lakers.
Go ahead.
You don't travel. You have 2 months of playoffs. You sit in a bubble in Orlando. You play 1 or 2 games a week. You get pretty weak opponents because Milwaukee and others lost, as I recall. I'm sorry, it's not the same. The Lakers, and I would even go further than the Dodgers. The Lakers really didn't win the NBA title. That season should just be wiped out. they can win it this year the real way. You're playing in these high school gyms against mediocre competition. You don't have to travel. It's not the NBA title. John Washburn, I'm sorry.
They were playing in a television studio. And
Right.
the Milwaukee Bucks did their predictable flop
Right.
on grass.
Bucks might have beaten the Lakers, but who cares? They didn't have to travel to Milwaukee or travel to LA. That is a factor in it. And I think the Lakers, whereas the Dodgers title gets a small asterisk because, the regular season went through 60 games, but they traveled, had a little bit of a home game in the first round, whatever. The Lakers title doesn't count. Sorry. I mean, yes, I know they won it as it was set up, but that season doesn't count. It took a full freaking year to play. And then they waited only 7 weeks and started up again. So to me, that season doesn't count.
And even your favorite website, Yahoo Sports, did a feature on this, that quality of play in the NBA so far. It's only been 3 weeks, but it sucked.
But the NBA fans don't
all
care.
over the place.
The NBA fans don't care. As our friend Mr. Bob, who may be watching this someday, all they're looking for are dunks.
Yeah, no,
dunks.
I plan on having a Basic Saturday on this show.
Yeah,
I plan on doing that. But
let me point out something. I like basketball. I don't really like football. I've mentioned this. I'll watch football, and I watch more NFL than I watch NBA.
Well, you say that, and then the Vikings game's going down, and at 12:10 p.m., you're telling me how the Vikings are crapping the bed again.
Well, they did.
Yet again in a home game.
Right. And I follow the NFL a little bit more on just following the scores, but I do watch most of the Vikings games, not much else. But I like basketball. I actually like basketball more than football as a game. And I like college basketball.
Right.
So it's not about the game itself in the sense that the NBA is not basketball. It's a 2-man whirling dervish isolation crap league of guys checking up 3-pointers and throwing alley-oops. It's kind of like the All-Star game used to be. And now that's become
look at the scores.
Right. It's not basketball. You watch Butler and Creighton and any of these college teams.
There was a great game last night.
That's actually basketball. And Bob, John, I'm sorry. You're basketball fans. You like basketball. The NBA, you should love college. The NBA is not basketball. Now, they may be better athletes and better players, but there's no actual basketball being played in these games. Maybe down the stretch in a playoff game there is, but generally speaking, it's just dribble up the court, chuck a 3, or isolation 2-man. There's no defense in the regular season. And that's a fact. You can enjoy it. Maybe it's enjoyable if you want to watch dunk, but it's not basketball. And that's just the truth.
Ari, you are giving so much better, insightful analysis than Stephen A. Smith or Max Kellerman.
Max Kellerman, another fellow idiot Jew.
Yeah, you're Jew. I mean, you rail on your fellow faith members.
I'm Jewish, so I can say this. Generally speaking, if you find the dumbest, most left-wing people in media, Dan Wetzel, Max Kellerman, Keith Olbermann, they're unfortunately most of them are Jewish, and that's not an anti-Semitic comment. I am Jewish, and these people are not. They're not writing as Jews. They're usually really bad.
And for full disclosure,
you go Mormons.
Yes.
Mitt Romney 2024.
Yes, Gunnar Romney.
Gunnar Romney, yeah, great athlete. Why didn't he win the Heisman?
Oh, geez, I'm surprised Zach Wilson landed in the top 10. But for point of disclosure, I was once a convert and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which I only say because the church president wants the members not to say they're Mormon or LDS, but to say the full name just for selling purposes.
Every Mormon, I know I speak for some people when I say this, and I'm not saying it goes for everything, but every Mormon, I've known a few Mormons pretty well. Every Mormon I've ever met has been a great, nice person, good family, smart. I mean, It's just, I know not all of them are like that, but every Mormon I've met.
Well, I mean, I got out because I realized I could not keep that standard. I drink a few Mountain Dews. I played in a few fantasy sports leagues, and I got enough of that. You actually guided me towards the light in that, because I'm used to throw stuff at the wall, pissed off neighbors over some silly event in a football game that costed my and I had just so much awful luck in it. It's amazing. It's like betting. I do a thing on kacmedia.com, and actually I'm putting one up tonight. I'm doing not only all 6 games, but all 6 over unders. So we'll see how that goes. But since about mid-season, yeah, you would have gotten very rich picking against everything I picked.
Okay, not me, but people in general.
Yeah. Anyone who did. I haven't said you want to get rich, just go against these picks that maybe I should just flip flop them and it's and it's just something I do. That's a little entertainment I put in uh, uh, with the website. Now, if I could segue back to what happened in Washington, and I am going to let's see. I am trying to find and I'm doing this on the fly here. Ah, yes, here. I'm sharing my screen on this. And I want to talk about Ashley Babbitt. And we're not going to show the video. I don't know if you've seen it or not, Ari, but it was one of the more disturbing videos I have seen.
I have, and I noticed you type in her name, and I have not done this, so I don't know. And go back one page real quick.
Sure.
You just typed in her name. This is a study that I want people to pay attention to because I don't use Google because I think Google's a
You know what? And I meant I usually do Bing first. Now,
Bing or DuckDuckGo or whatever. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. In fact, I dislike a lot of conspiracies. But I think Google's a bad company. I think what they're doing in China, what they do to free speech, I think it's all bad.
China, which started the COVID mess, whether at worst negligence, at best negligence, at worst an act of war. And I was saying after 6 months of going, okay, am I the crazy one? Well, and then I turn on, and I've kind of backed away from listening to Alex Jones in recent years. I turned on Alex Jones for a half hour, and one of his disciples, John Baum, did a report and said, China, act of war. And Nancy Pelosi, I don't know if you follow that, Nancy Pelosi has blocked the nuclear code, so Trump doesn't do anything in the final. We're down to, I think, 284 hours now.
Well, so I agree with you on China. They were completely responsible. It's not a conspiracy. And Google and the NBA and Mike Bloomberg and all these jerks are still going to do business with China and make money off them and enrich them. And they're going to continue to do bad things. So the NBA is a bad league run by bad people. And so is Google. But when it comes to searching for things, you type in her name. This is a lesson for people. You type in this lady's name, nonpartisan. What pops up? Seattle Times, left-wing paper. Washington Post, left-wing paper. Philadelphia Inquirer, left-wing. New York Times, BBC.
All these newspapers I'm supposed to pay $10 a month to access their content. Well,
that's the other discussion. But my question is, why do we not see, I'm just asking, Wall Street Journal, I'm not even talking about Breitbart or anything. Where's Wall Street Journal? Where's Fox News? Where's any moderate or conservative?
Here, I'll just go to news.
New York Times.
You can probably read this.
New York Post. New York Post. You got one. Newsweek, far left. Seattle Times. Epoch Times is right wing. Okay, there's one. Local, New York Post, same article. Left. Okay, TMZ, left wing. Okay, so you got a couple. I saw New York Post, and that's fine. CBS. I realize the mainstream media is 90% liberal, but I mean, the point is Apple News, Google, you're only getting one side. And I know conservatives who use Apple News and Google for their news, and it surprises me they don't realize that. Go search it out yourself, Go ahead.
Obviously I didn't know her, but like anyone else didn't know her, but she was an Air Force veteran for 14 years, and I did not hear anything in regards to her criminal record. Unlike George Floyd and Eric Floyd.
Most of them, frankly.
Oh, not Jacob Blake.
Yeah.
Jacob Blake.
But look at the headline though. Again, I'm a journalist. I really am. And I don't you look at my headlines on my Alpha news stories, not my columns, my news story. I don't use adjectives and partisan language. New York Times. Who was Ashley Babbitt? Woman killed in Capitol. Embraced Trump QAnon. Who cares? Woman fatally shot in Capitol. Echoed Trump on social media. Who cares? I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
I guess you were saying as such on any social media in recent days.
I
So
saw it. No, I saw clips, and she's definitely a Trump supporter, and she's got some views that are way out there. But we didn't look into George Floyd's social media. We didn't look into Breonna Taylor's social media, nor should we, by the way. I mean, the point is George Floyd and Breonna Taylor might have been communists. I don't care. But you
and
didn't see the New York
I
Times.
don't want to get into if we had this alternative universe where Trump won the election and you had BLM disputing it, and LeBron James leads a march to the Capitol, and
Yeah.
a black person tries to break through that wall like Ashley Babbitt did and immediately got shot fatally just like that, went flying back to the ground.
It's unfortunate we have to do the what about stuff because I don't think it's helpful, but it sometimes is important to notice that what would be the difference. No one there were hundreds and hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of BLM, Antifa, and just ordinary liberals and normal people marching all summer. And as far as I know, not one was shot dead by police, was unarmed.
And I could say this, I worked more than 2.5 years on an administration level with the Wisconsin Department of Corrections. And I had to do a lot of training, even being a non-officer. And they had how to delegate authority for certain events, or if someone, we did like a hypothetical thing where someone came through the front door, shot the officer at the front desk dead, and now was heading to the second floor where I am on one side, and the other side, if I recall, is where families can make phone calls to the inmates. They cannot see their inmates at the facility I was at. It was a detention facility. That has brought on a lot of controversy. There's been a lot of deaths. There's no air conditioning. There's no heat. You don't see the light of day. You do not see the light of day for up to 6 months there. But they went through these scenarios, and I remembered one of the lead security people there said, if someone shoots someone right at the front desk and now is heading, we know that person has no regard for human life. So obviously, on the other end, they're going to shoot to kill. So I'm not defending the whoever the law enforcement person was that killed Ashley Babbitt. It's in a situation, an extreme situation, and they train on this and play out these scenarios. He did his job. Mm-hmm. I could say, why couldn't they just tase her? Well, tase her, then 10 other people get in. Yeah. He basically did. I'm not, I'm not calling him to be prosecuted or anything. It's an unfortunate.
But if the victim were different, there would be calls for prosecution and right. Death threats, and it's just unfortunate that we have to be so inconsistent. I mean, fact is, I don't care that she's white. I don't care that she's a woman. I don't care if she's a Trump supporter. She was shot by a law enforcement officer. Probably should still be alive, but I'm not blaming the law enforcement officer. And I feel the exact same way when it comes to, well, George Floyd was an extreme situation, but most of the police shootings have been justified. If you want to use that word, justified. And of course, what LeBron James doesn't understand are numbers. Is that how many hundreds of thousands of contacts police have every year with people in the Black community, in the white community, wherever, and nothing happens, or they don't shoot them, or what's going on? Jalen Rose, they yell right after Breonna Taylor.
Well, I put it on Facebook. Right away, I know you don't have a Facebook account, but I didn't get any comments on it. I imagine a lot of the liberals didn't like what I said. I said, say her name, Ashley Babbitt.
Just be consistent. LeBron James.
Yeah, I'm saying her name. She fought for what she believed in.
Right.
Maybe
And
I don't
actually,
agree 100% with her, but she did what she did.
yeah, the reaction's been
And now
unfortunate.
I guess they are trying to identify everyone that had breached the Capitol and prosecute them. And obviously, these are people from all across the country. It isn't like you can walk down to Northern Virginia and nab half of them. And plus, because in this culture, if you can wear a nice little thing like this and look like a bandit,
Well, that's what Antifa did for years. They had their Guy Fawkes masks and they had their bandanas and they can never be identified. They're actually
I mean, this is, and this is coming. Even after COVID ends, we're still going to be wearing the mask or the face coverings, at least in grocery stores
of course.
and some other venues.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's going to be, well, this is something we should have done all. And what I want to ask you is, where's the seasonal flu this year? Have you heard? I'm sure you've looked up to see if there has been any talk about it whatsoever.
No, no, there hasn't. There haven't been very many cases, and COVID's overwhelmed the conversations people have had, and
And the
it's just
people who are catching the flu, it's probably COVID as well.
right. They're all merging it together. I mean, as you know,
As someone would tell me, it's the flu on steroids.
sure, sure. And if people are shot dead by police, like or something, and they had COVID in their system, it's a COVID death. So
Well,
the numbers
yeah,
are.
Floyd. Yep, George Floyd's COVID death.
Dr. Scott Jensen, who's a former representative of Minnesota, whose term ended last year, he's been on Alpha News quite a bit. He's been on Fox. He's been on regular NBC too, and he's questioned the COVID deaths count. It's not a big deal. I just think that I'm sure 20 or 30% of the people that are classified as COVID deaths didn't really die of COVID. So it doesn't minimize the fact we've had well over 100,000 deaths, maybe 200,000, but I don't necessarily believe that we've had whatever number we're at now have all been purely COVID deaths. It's just important to mention.
You read the article I did, I think around the end of November, when I said the border to Canada is not going to reopen anytime soon.
Yep.
And I got a surprising amount of feedback, particularly from the International Falls, Minnesota, Fort Francis, Ontario area. It could be
Did you hear anything from the Thunder Bay, Ontario / Grand Marais?
I got a couple of clicks from Thunder Bay. Got it like 7 from Brampton, which is near Hamilton, which is near the Buffalo border. A couple in the Abbotsford, British Columbia, the Vancouver Island area.
Anything from Lake of the Woods?
Lake of the Woods. I have not seen anything from Lake in the Woods. What I can do is.
So what did they say? Were they mad at you or what?
No. I didn't get any comment or anything.
People read
I think
it.
they agreed with me. They're losing business.
Oh yeah, I was going to say people on the border would be the ones who'd be the most upset about this, of course.
Yes. So I mean, this is the analytics and reports, and
not done by Google, I hope.
They're done by Wix Media.
Wix.
Yeah, Google sent me a thing showing everywhere I traveled to in the last year.
Oh, they're wonderful people.
Which was a short list.
Salt of the earth. They're out there just for you to help you. Yes. Don't be evil, as they say.
So I'll make my trip to Texas, and then if the FBI is ever looking for me, they know all the places I hang out. But this is the last 30 days, and see, I got someone in France, I got someone in the UK. I think it's good to see some people outside the country. I've got in Australia in the past.
There's the
Looks
guy
like Bangkok is
Beijing. Look, Beijing, we're all over you.
Yeah, and I thought KC Media was banned there.
I think that's LeBron James, actually.
It could be. So Beijing, hey, we welcome. We welcome you. We welcome everybody.
You and your Salt Lake City areas, they like you.
Well, I did a story, and I was watching the second half of BYU's bowl game, and God, they got 12 games in.
Mhm.
But in any event, they were talking about the offensive coordinator is not a Mormon, Jeff Grimes. He was with LSU, and I know a few LSU people. And I came to find out that Jeff Grimes and another assistant were AWOL for the game. And the coach sidestepped it. Sataki, Kalani Sataki, the head coach, sidestepped it in the press conference. But this was after LSU, they fired the defensive coordinator, which is Spo Pelini. And then they fired the offensive coordinator. So that's why I did the article. Could Jeff Grimes be heading back to LSU? And he's actually in the mix for some head coaching gigs. So that's how I got the Utah.
Circles are where you have a lot of people in the circles.
Yeah.
Big circles.
I got a couple in the Provo area. I got Salt Lake. Plus, only one in Provo. Come on, Provo. You got to do better. Draper, Salt Lake City. Light up those phone lines. Layden. Logan. Logan, where are you?
Where are you in Medicine?
You still have a landline that works.
Well, yeah.
But here's my Lincoln audience. I love my Lincoln followers. Go Ben Sass.
St. Cloud.
10 people in St. Cloud. I've got 8 in Chicago. I had a huge, my most read story was because I actually beat a lot of the mainstream media on it. It was when the high school player down was a border team by McGowan.
I remember that. He had to fight with the ref
from the game, and then he ran back and blindsided the referee like the Clemson player on Justin Fields. And he's suspended from all sports, his wrestling gig, and maybe he'll catch on a JC college football team. And
did you want to touch on? I know we want to try to wrap up maybe at the top of the hour because our viewers don't want to keep you more than an hour.
Right.
Did you were searching something that I hadn't heard about? A congressman in Illinois had.
And I'm glad you noticed that. I found that last night, and the reason I initially found that was first I wanted to see if how the rest of the world is looking at Donald Trump, and I was wondering,
Madison,
how do they liken him to Kim Jong-un, and how do they liken him to Adolf Hitler? So I stumble across. And Madison.com just said that she has apologized. Yeah, she apologized. She is apologizing that she got called out for him. But what was she was? I guess she's a freshman.
I know the name. I've seen her on TV. She's from a farm in Illinois. She's got a bunch of kids. She's about 60, and she just won a seat. And she seemed very impressive when I saw her on TV. Let's see. What is the exact quote? Because I like to take these things seriously, but also fairly.
Okay, here's the full clip. Incoming Illinois Congresswoman Mary Miller didn't slip or improvise when she quoted Hitler, praised how the murderous Nazi built his political movement by indoctrinating the youth. She was reading from prepared remarks. And tell me if you can hear this or not.
To be here.
I hear it.
Organizers of Women, Moms for America. I want to tell you 2020 has been a very unusual year. And proof of it is that Mary Miller, the farmer, mother of 7, grandma of 17, has been elected to Congress. The squad claims that they represent all America, but we know that they don't represent or the millions of women across America that hold that faith, family, and freedom is what's made our country great. We should be unashamed to represent our values. The family is foundational to the stability of our country. When I was asked to run, my response was, well, I'm not a politician and I'm not a lawyer. But Bill Montgomery, who was instrumental in getting Turning Point USA started, said, Mary, we need you because you represent the family. Each generation has the responsibility to teach the next generation. You know, if we win a few elections, we're still going to be losing unless we win the hearts of our children. This is the battle. Hitler was right on one thing. He said, whoever has the youth has the future. Our children are being propagandized. Today, I want to encourage you to do two things. Your minds, what is true and right, noble, and then they can overcome evil with good because they what is evil and what is good.
Well,
And that's the first time I heard her actually say it.
look, someone wrote that, whether she did or her staff did. I if she would just taken out the Hitler line, it wasn't even necessary. The
Right.
speech was fine, and she threw that in for some odd reason. Yeah, Hitler did indoctrinate youth, and there's a lot of people who believe our universities and are somewhat Stalinistic or Hitlerian, and maybe she was trying to make that point. But I don't know why on earth she'd use any dictator, much less Hitler, talk about how it's important to, not indoctrinate our youth or to make our children understand things. That's a very bizarre, but she apologized and she says she's pro-Israel, and I'm sure she is, and I'm sure she's not an anti-Semite. But why the hell would you include those few words in there? I have no idea.
And there are people that fellow House members that had been calling for resignation, and I plan on doing a story on that on KAC Media because that's not in the top of the. I'm sure it's not on Drudge right now.
There's congresswomen that have said much worse things about Jews in America on the Democrat side that haven't been punished at all. So
you hit the, but you remember when Marge Schott owned the Cincinnati Reds?
$1 million.
And she said at one point towards the end, Hitler did some good things at first.
Yeah.
And
well, the irony is you can say nice things about Mussolini and Stalin and all these communist dictators and not get in much trouble, but Hitler's pretty much off limits. I personally think, I'm a big believer in free speech, but I think if one's off limits, they should all be off limits. I mean, Stalin killed more people than Hitler, and they're both evil human beings who should rot in hell. But, I'm sure Bernie Sanders has said nice things about the communist Russian leaders over the years, and no one seems to mind that.
And I meant to ask you, we've been on for about an hour now. I meant to ask you, does your cat family wear face coverings?
No, I don't think that would go over well with them. They don't even like if we try to put on
have you seen dogs wearing them?
Have I?
You may have seen masks.
I don't think dogs can. I've read things saying dogs can't give you COVID and you can't give it to them, although a few have gotten it. Look, I'm sure if you went to some urban hipster area of Berkeley or DC or New York, you'd see dogs with masks, but you see people in these major liberal cities that are walking in the woods with no one around with a mask on. What can I say? Virtue signal.
I mean, this is how draconian it got.
Draconian.
It's taken me an hour to use that word. This is how draconian it got right from the outset of COVID-19. In early March, hikers start up the Appalachian Trail in hopes of hiking the entire trail by October. They were kicked off. And I'm going like, what, the animals in the wood, in the national parks and that. I mean, the grizzly bears in Yellowstone, they're not going to wear a mask. Just stupid humans, just the humanoids. And someone came back to me and goes, well, hikers aren't known for having the best hygiene. I goes, well, Mr. Grizzly Bear, Mr. Black Bear, they don't, if they're lucky to swim in the lake to get themselves halfway clean. they consider that it's so ridiculous. It's like, what a time to be alive. It's like literally animals have it better. Some animals have it better right now. Maybe not some
Sure
of the
they do. I
feral
don't know if
cats.
that means I want to be an animal or anything, but yeah, sure they do.
It's just I can't wait. It's 20 years from now. And yeah, people wearing masks around and that. And I don't know if you saw the footage of Boston University basketball.
Yeah, see and again, it's Boston University. I mean,
And you see the player, and most of them are like this. Some even like that. They couldn't breathe. You can't
it's
play basketball going up and down the court and breathe.
Well, look who it is. I mean, look, it's Duke Universities. They don't want to play because their team's not as good, frankly. And it's never a surprise. I mean, look what the SEC and Big 12 allowed fans this year. The preponderance of those schools, with the exception of University of Texas and maybe one or two others, are not left-wing schools, and they're not in liberal states per se. And the Pac-12 and Big 10, of which outside of Nebraska and maybe Iowa,
Right.
and I guess Utah, are all from very liberal states. They had a disastrous season and they didn't allow fans. It's just it becomes ideological.
Right. And we're going to look at an entire generation of kids that had to go to school, learn. And I think maybe we should move to an online model in part for students. And I mean, you say your piece as a former teacher, what's wrong with the teachers union, the teachers profession? In 1976, I probably told you the story some at some point. I was forced into a school because I was in a dumpy neighborhood. My mom was having serious financial problems and trying to raise me. I was forced to attend a junior high school in seventh grade that was 98% Black. I lasted maybe 3 weeks there. I became target number one. Now, fortunately, we moved to a better neighborhood eventually, but still under the school desegregation plan, even schools in quote unquote white areas at the time eventually turned Black, and the neighborhoods around them wound up turning Black. The high school I attended, John Marshall High School in Milwaukee, was the middle class neighborhood. In the early 1970s, most of the students were white. By the time I was there, it was pretty well integrated, maybe 60-40, 60-40 to white, or 50-50 even. Now it's actually a much smaller school, and it merged with another school, but it's 90% Black now. And people who live in Milwaukee would tell you how the racial demographics have changed in the northwest side of Milwaukee over the years. So I don't want to sound hate. I got a lot of Black friends in that, but I don't want to say hateful in that, but I remember being targeted by different ethnic groups. Me and a friend were walking home from school once. 3 Black guys jumped us. One was on me, the other's on my buddy, and the third one's like playing Rover. It's how I grew up.
You got to be careful on these topics, but it goes back to Kamala Harris telling Joe Biden he was racist for being opposed to busing back in the 70s when everyone was opposed to busing, and it's not an issue today. Busing had terrible consequences for the schools. I grew up in San Diego, as you know, went to La Jolla High School, and La Jolla is a pretty wealthy area, though there are about 20% of the students kind of from where I live, which is more middle class, up on the hill on the east side, far from the ocean. But they also, from about 1970 something till a couple years after I finished high school in the late 90s, they bussed up Hispanic kids from Southeast San Diego every day. So the kids I went to school with did that from 1984 to 1997, let's just say. And they stopped the program because it didn't work. They had a couple kids who went to UCLA, went to good schools, and maybe did better because of it. But for the most part, most of them finished high school, went back to where they were, and did probably the same things they were going to do had they not gone to La Jolla High School. And it caused, we didn't have race riots or things like that, but it caused the campus to be segregated. The Mexican kids honestly mostly ate in the cafeteria during lunch, and the white and Asian kids and a few black kids ate out on the quad because it's San Diego and the weather's nice. You're still going to have segregation. So maybe they got a slightly better education, but in reality, busing and desegregating, while well-meaning, and we don't want anyone to live where they can't travel and feel like they're legally segregated institutionally, that's bad. But in general, a lot of these do-gooder liberal policies, especially in education, don't work. And you were saying about online education. Here's a little secret. I've, of course, as you know, as a former teacher, have been appalled that schools have been closed since March 10th in most of the country. Now, Nebraska, I know, has been open. Some parts of Minnesota have, some smaller states, but for the most part, DC, Chicago, all of California, they've been closed for 10 months, getting close to a year. And they won't be opening until March at the earliest, and probably in DC and some of these places, not until the fall. So I hate that. I think it's wrong. I think it's ruining kids' lives. It's hurting families. And my gosh, the teachers are getting paid. And I firmly believe half of them are doing a good job and working hard. And it's probably very tricky what they're doing. But I know from friends and family and from guys who are liberal and some teachers that about half of them aren't doing shit. Okay. They're mailing it in. They're either putting out videos and worksheets or they're not even showing up, and they're getting paid our money, 40, 50, 60, 70, $80,000 a year. That's criminal.
Chicago's trying to get back to it. And this is just with kindergarten and special needs.
Special needs.
Special needs students might have a hard time, understanding everything to working a laptop and that. So, and not to mention a lot of poor students do not have access to.
Yeah. Oh, look, Kurt. I'm glad you brought that up. This has been the worst thing for working class people and poor families. That's the irony. What's happened to the schools has enabled wealthy, connected people to continue on with either tutors or parents that are at home, and it's made the poorer and working class kids, minority and otherwise, get screwed. So the irony is the teachers unions, as usual, have made things worse for our most vulnerable populations, including special needs kids. It's so backwards. There should be a class action lawsuit against the unions. And instead, Joe Biden picked a labor secretary who's the favorite of the teachers unions and an education secretary who also is. So that may not change the federal level.
And I'm just going here to kacmedia.com, and here's my story on the Chattanooga coach and some other stories during the week.
Katie Emmer.
You know what? I used it a second time on Twitter. The headline that I needed to use was Katie Emmer so disgusted with Eagles playoff tank that she leaves town, effective immediately.
Well, let's close on the Chicago teachers lady and Katie Emmer real quick. Katie, let's close on a happy thought with Katie, even though it's not a great story. But the Chicago teachers lady, in case you folks don't know, she's the head of the union. She said teachers should never go back to school.
I'm pointing there right now.
They shouldn't be outside. And then she jetted to Puerto Rico, which I don't even know if you're supposed to be going out of the country, and had a grand old time for a week, posting photos in bathing suits and at bars.
And this is like, she's a leader.
Yes.
For the teachers.
No common sense and a hypocrite. And obviously it shows, just like the governor of California and others, they'll do as I say, not as I do. They'll do what they want and tell you.
If I'm a parent of someone in the Chicago school district and I see that, I'm pissed.
There's a mom out there, a single mom. I don't care if they're white, black, Hispanic, whatever, double shifts at Walgreens, whose kid's not getting educated and making minimum wage, while this, I guess we can swear on this, while this asshole is out there at 5-star vacations.
Don't hold back, Ari.
So it's wrong, and I sound like I'm an aggrieved socialist when I say that. No, it's just common sense. Katie Emmer, should we end with that?
Yes.
Katie Emmer, just so no one listening to this podcast, unless you're in Philadelphia or maybe Minnesota, knows.
Minneapolis.
I've met Katie.
I guess she got quite a following in Philadelphia in just 1 year.
Katie Emmer is the daughter of Representative Tom Emmer, who is my congressman. He is a Republican. He is an excellent congressman, a moderate Republican, I would say. He is a leader in the party. He's the head of the National Republican Congressional Committee for the House. And of course, the Republicans did incredibly well in the House this year. He may run for governor here. Great guy. His daughter, Katie, who's probably 25, 26.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Maybe
She
she's
is. I've met her a few
25 by
times.
now.
She went to St. Cloud State. She's from the Minneapolis area.
She actually went to Hawaii.
She went to University of Hawaii at Hilo for 1 year to play basketball, and that didn't work
Well,
out.
she wanted to play softball. She wound up playing basketball, and
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine Katie in Hawaii. I see her on a frozen rink in Minneapolis.
Yeah, and that's part of it. She was homesick, but she's very intelligent. She looks and acts much older than she is. I've met her a few times. She covered the St. Cloud Rock. She covered St. Cloud State hockey incredibly for a couple of years. And after she graduated, she got a job as the sideline person or rinkside person for the University of Minnesota hockey team, which is at Fox Sports North, which is a really good gig, and a studio host during, I believe, Twins and Wild telecasts.
She will pop in on a Timberwolves halftime or whatever.
Yeah, and you know what? She was 24 years old at the time, 23. I mean, but you never know. She's 100 times better than the people they have at ESPN and CBS in the sidelines.
And
I mean, not all of them, but
she was not just, behind the glass, just giving feel-good stories or whatnot, like most of the other sideline commentators did. She actually had, from what I hear, she has a great analytical mind. And of course, I don't think she'll ever get a commentary gig and with the NHL or college hockey.
it's a lot
But
better than
she
the
was
few.
giving better analysis, and I would hear from Kendall Coyne Schofield, who I guess she's got a gig with the Chicago Blackhawks, so she's not going to be on NBC anymore. But don't worry, they'll find someone else.
It's funny because you and I do occasionally ridicule announcers that shouldn't be there, male or female, but a lot of times some of the token choices. But just to prove the consistency, Katie Emmer should be on a telecast. She's fantastic, and there are others, Allie LaForce, that are like her. But for some reason, they put people on sometimes that just aren't qualified. And Katie Emmer loses her job because of budget cuts and COVID.
Oh, and then NBC has AJ Molesko. I'm sure they have a list of former U.S. women's hockey players on speed dial, and CBS, for one of their NFL reporters, their number 14, whatever, has someone named AJ Ross, another woman. So a lot of women that are calling themselves AJ these days.
Maybe, yeah, it's tough. It is what it is. Right?
Even Doris Burke. I actually enjoy her commentary on the NBA most of the other NBA announcements. TNT does a better job of it. They got Brian Anderson.
Look, there are plenty of women and men, but in this case, women that should be on TV and probably had to work harder to get to where they are than men. But there are a lot of women who have no business being in the roles they are, and they were chosen for token reasons. So just be consistent. I'll always be fair and consistent when I see someone, male or female. And there are a lot of men out there who are terrible at their jobs too. The ESPN Monday Night Football guys, when I check in, they're awful. They change them every year.
Well, it's somewhat better than last year. And
Either way,
it's very low.
How can you not find someone to do Monday Night Football, which used to be the biggest thing around? Now apparently Sunday Night Football gets all the better games, as they should, because Al Michaels
basically the Monday Night Football now.
Yeah, but the guys Joe Tessitore and Steve Levy and the side.
Oh, and of course Tessitore has a kid playing for Boston College now. Does Herb Street have a kid playing for Clemson? Did I see someone with the Herb Street name?
He does.
On his shirt? Okay. But here's what I want to close out on. This is going to be my parting shot. Well, not a parting shot, but one thing is someone who I will give credit for, who's not a token hire or anything, is Becky Hammond, who has worked under Greg Popovich for several years. And Tim Duncan had been serving as the first assistant, but Tim Duncan is not on the coaching staff anymore. So when Popovich, got ejected from a game, Becky Hammond became the first woman to coach in a professional men's sports game. And it's highly believed that she will get a head coaching gig. And at least I could say she's earned her spurs, no pun intended. long time. She's from South Dakota.
Yeah, I'm looking her up right now. I didn't know
Yeah.
her background, but she's paid her dues. There's the difference. She's coached everywhere
Yes.
around the world and country.
Yeah. She actually represented Russia in Olympic competition because
Yeah, I
she
see
was
that.
invited for the United States team. And I guess because she was playing professionally there and could write in crayon in 3 different colors, she got Russian citizenship. I mean, good for her. I'm not. I
Well,
doesn't
and
bother
the Florida
me.
Marlins GM, the lady who was picked for them, she seems to have paid her dues. It's not like
Yeah,
she beat
it
people who are
was with the
25 or
Dodgers
30.
for a number of years.
Yeah. So
And the Dodgers are in mourning today. As you know, Tommy Lasorda, in case those who don't know, Tommy Lasorda died early Friday, or probably yesterday, or was reported early today at age 93. But yeah, she keeps her personal life top secret. If I dox her enough on the internet, supposedly dating Tony Parker for a while. That's fine. You know what? I don't need to know their personal lives.
no,
So,
we don't.
I'm fine with it. The Milwaukee Bucks interviewed her for general manager a few years ago, a couple years ago. So, hey, I hope she gets it. And, only 30 NBA coaches, and there's a good shot that she might be one of them. And I'm sure Dan Wetzel will
I was
soon
going to say Dan
write a
Wetzel will
column
complain.
that none of the 346 Division One men's basketball coaches are women. Maybe a few assistants here and there. Maybe at Kentucky or Syracuse. Or
You just wonder if guys like Dan Wetzel go to bed at night just wondering about all the grievance and wrong in the world that really doesn't exist, and just so bitter, and yet I can't relate to that. I just can't.
I have to say, do a random check of Yahoo Sports. Shliz Menza Young is due to say something.
There you go. Vaccine, NBA players. Oh boy.
Yeah, NBA players may think twice about. I'm not in a hurry. Are you in a hurry to get the vaccine?
No, my wife got the vaccine because she works in healthcare.
Right.
I'm not in a hurry, but I do like how, again, you just go to Yahoo and what's the first thing you have? Black NBA players, which is 80% of the league, 90, could be wary due to generations of institutional racism, and there's no evidence. Now, the Tuskegee experiment we know about was bad, but the word institutional racism is just a made up word they like to use.
Right.
There is some in the history, but in 2021, millionaire NBA players are not getting a vaccine any different than you or I. I mean, what? I'm not anti-vaxxer either,
I even said in the Chicago Teachers article, you read it, I said, get them the vaccine. Put them at the head of the line. We're doing it with healthcare. Let's do it with teachers, and we can think of a few other essential positions.
Whatever gets these morons, teachers, back to the classroom and earning their large paychecks and benefits.
Tell them how you really feel.
No, I have plenty of teacher friends who are good folks. Some of them are conservative. A lot of them are hardworking.
About 10 of the teachers, 10% of the teachers I actually had respect for. The rest of them they were telling stuff about their personal lives and
they're like anyone else. I mean, the point is that's the whole problem. And the first article I ever had published in 2004, it started by saying teachers are not saints. They're no different than you or I.
And is that the one you've been doxxed for on Twitter?
Yeah, 2004, when I was still teaching.
Okay.
Teachers are not saints. They're not any more honest than any other. I mean, they might be more honest than a gambler or a used car salesman, I guess. But the point is, they're no more honest than you or I or anyone else. And frankly, a lot of them do take advantage of the system and take 6 weeks off when they're not sick and all that. But the point is, this idea that they're linked with healthcare workers, military, and so on. Not all military and healthcare workers are fantastic people either, but they do a job like an accountant does. Okay. And they get paid really well in most major cities. Oh boy, let's not get into this. Can we end here?
History was made in Boston last Friday. The first Black woman to coach in Major League Baseball.
Taking a picture for the record.
And we had the first women's coach. Well, they want to make that the self-fulfilling prophecy of the show called Pitch a few years ago. How long did
how did that work out, that show?
Had to make it at least 9-10 weeks. And what happened in Washington this week? Let's be honest, this is kind of the Alex Jones crowd, self-fulfilling prophecy. They have the benches clear. They use an analogy. So I'm
Yeah.
reading about this. I guess she's an assistant athletic director and hitting
Home
coordinator
run hire. It's a home run hire. Look at that. Home run.
University in Wisconsin. So she's been hired for by the Red Sox as a minor league coach. She'll work as a hitting instructor at spring training and that. Yeah, we've got the. I mean, there's so many. Maybe there's 25% of the articles that I.
Oh God, this lady. Yeah, you've told me about her. I'm not.
History
entire...
shouldn't forget, and WNBA players helped change course the U.S. Senate, and neither should their league. That's why I'm not going to.
Don't wait here, Kurt. Don't smear all black players because of Dwayne. Who's smearing all black players? Because these are all straw man arguments. Don't smear all black NFL players because of Dwayne. No one's doing that. I mean, she probably has a quote. No one's doing that.
Okay. Documentary shines light on NFL cheerleader exploitation. They make below minimum wage. Well, they don't have to be cheerleaders. Don't smear all black NFL players because of Dwayne Haskins. Well, Dwayne Haskins is showing up at parties without mask and everything else. It wasn't him just being mediocre as a quarterback for the Washington team. It is 2020 was a transformative year in sports. We need more of that. Just like I said in my video. On the topic kacmedia.com, was 2020 just a trailer for 2021? It's like, get your popcorn ready.
All right. Well,
thanks, but no thanks.
There. I've got some emails coming in from Alpha News that are bugging me about a Zoom thing next week about Mitch McConnell, which I'm not interested in because these people haven't learned anything from the last week, apparently, that Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, here would be 1 article out of 10 I would agree with her with. Jets players are worried about their jobs not getting the #1 overall draft pick.
That's good.
And that's stupid. If the Eagles supposedly lost on purpose to go from #9 to #6 in the first round of the draft, well, Washington could have lost that game and gone from #20 to #11 in the draft. And Transcendent 12, Naomi Osaka, woke Japanese black tennis player Maya Moore. I don't even know who Maya Moore has to be. Someone in the WNBA. Whatever. We'll get off of that. In fact, we will. I'm going to end the screen share. We're going to get back here and you asked me what topics we had, and I bet you there are at least a dozen that. I said, I'm going to say 5 minutes from now. Damn, I should have had Ari on this.
Well, we can do it. We can definitely do it again. We can do it every other week.
Yeah. This isn't the last time. This is, episode 2 of the Crowley podcast. And I'm going to have this thing as big as Joe Rogan in a year or so.
Sounds good.
I mean, that's a nice thing. Even though the Rogan podcast, I'm not in the head of Whole Foods or whatever, some of the guests he has on, but he makes a good, informative 3-hour show without a commercial on. He does commercials now at the start of it, but it's, I'm hoping to grow my personal revenue, business model with KC Media. I don't know what I could do for a KC Media Plus, but we'll see. 2021 is going to be a great year. I don't care what anyone says.
What's that?
2021 is going to be a great year, and I don't care what anyone says.
I agree.
Anything else?
That's it. No, I think it'll be interesting to see where we are next time we talk in terms of politics and sports. I don't know how much sports will change, but in terms of the political world under the new administration and the vice president and the authoritarian.
I really want to see the updates to the Kaufman Museum and say hi to Dixie and everyone. Oh yeah, you got new. Have you got every president now in your bobblehead collection?
I think I have almost every president where that has had a bobblehead made of him, but they don't make a lot of bobbleheads for Millard Fillmore and Chester Arthur. Right?
There you go. And I got your Tony Gwynn card that said Crowley era from it.
Yeah, that's good. Mid
But
80s. Yep.
yeah, that was the good old days. Well, okay. Hey, I hope everyone has found this informative and everything. I hope I didn't go too out of bounds or anything. Well, I mentioned,
Let us know. Give us some feedback once you read it. Now that you've watched it, let us know.
yes. Okay. Well,
Thank you.
we'll be back later, and this will be a regular thing. You have been watching KAC Media.